Hey, it's Ed. Today I'd like to talk about Playbeat 4 with Logic Pro for iPad. I've been having a lot of fun with Playbeat 4 since it came out and really enjoying it. I've started to use it in Logic Pro for iPad now, and I'm finding it's a pretty good fit. It's actually pretty powerful. There's a lot of things you can do with it. So I wanted to set up a video to show how I've got it set up that might be able to help other people see how it can be used. There were some things that got me along the way that I wasn't quite prepared for, but after a bit they made a lot of sense once I understood how the app worked and how to use it with Logic Pro and the MIDI out feature. I'm going to go over the MIDI out setup in the iPad here with Logic Pro, and also the MIDI export and how that looks in Logic Pro. As far as I know, the features are fairly close between Logic Pro for iPad with Playbeat and the Mac version, so hopefully this carries over. If things don't make sense, let me know in the comments what you think, but hopefully it carries over fairly well and can be useful for people with the Mac version. I'm going to show you 3 scenarios today. Let me just show you what it looks like here. This is my Logic Pro project. I've got basically, there's 6 tracks here. There are 3 different MIDI out scenarios. And on top here, these 1, 2, and this is a grouping right here that go together. These are 3 scenarios where I'm going to show MIDI out. And down here, I've got a MIDI export that I did, and I'm going to show you how that works, how I generated these. These are MIDI exports from this track and this one here, just exported and then placed down here. And let me give you a quick overview. I'm also going to attach this spreadsheet as well as the Logic Pro project in the description, so look for that. So this is a quick overview of what I have in mind. So if you look at the top here, I call it scenario number 1, 2, and 3. So this is scenario 1, this is 2, and this is 3. I got a couple more listed in the spreadsheet, but we're just going to focus on these 3 because these are the ones that make most sense to me. I've got a few notes in here of how you need to work with it and the settings that you need to use, but I'm going to cover those in the video. So the first one is probably the simplest. This is basically where you have a piano roll and you've got your kick on one note, you got your snare on a different note, and so on and so forth, that sort of thing, where each drum instrument or drum kit piece is assigned to a single note, and you just pick it out of your piano roll to trigger those instruments. And as you can see here, we've got an example like track 1 is set to C2, track 2 is C sharp 2, all on channel 1. So this is all on a single channel, that scenario. So scenario number 2 is very similar to scenario number 1. We're going to have, again, a fixed note, a fixed pitch for each track, just like we did with scenario number 1. In this case, however, each track's going to get its own MIDI channel. So the kick might be on channel 1, the snare's on channel 2, and so on up to channel 8, since you have 8 tracks in Playbeat. The last scenario right here is the most interesting and the most complicated to set up, but very powerful. So in this case, we're going to send any MIDI note we want on track 1, channel 1. We're going to send any MIDI note we want on track 2, which is going to use only channel 2. And that's going to allow us to send multiple triggers, different pitch triggers on each track. So we can pitch the output. So if that's playing a sample on channel, on track 1, for example, if we're driving something on track 1, channel 1, that accepts a pitch value, like a sample, we can pitch it up or down. So we could have a low tune kick, a mid tune kick, a low tune snare, a mid tune snare, any kind of instrument that we want on the other end. But it's going to give us the flexibility to not only trigger it, but determine the pitch that's going to be sent on that instrument. So that can make things very interesting. So let me jump back to the Logic Pro project here, and we'll start walking through each of these scenarios and show you exactly how they're set up in Playbeat. So first of all, I've got this one turned on. This is our first track. I call it PB4, Fixed Note MIDI Out. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Let's open up the plugins window. Here's Playbeat, and let's go over here to the settings, this little gear here, and we're going to look at MIDI outputs first. As you can see, here's our MIDI outs. This is where we're going to select the channels we're sending on. So track 1 is channel 1, track 2 is channel 1, and all the way up to track 8, all channel 1, right? Everything's coming out on channel 1. And here, this little AC plug icon, track 1. The default is to have this off, right? That's the default. Now, in this case, we've got this on for all 8 tracks. You can see that I've assigned note values. So like track 1 is C1, track 2 is D1, track 3 is G sharp 1, and so on. And I've also got this little button down here, lock MIDI outputs. You can see that's turned red. That means it's on. That's going to come in very handy because it's going to make sure that these note values don't get floated around or changed around when we do things. And I'll come back to that later. But generally, when you're using fixed note values, you're going to want to have these locked. There might be some cases where you want to leave it off, but generally, you're going to want to have this turned on when you're using the fixed output. Let's go back. So let's just play this a little bit and give you a little taste of how this sounds. Let's kick it off here. So as you can see, let me pause that for just a moment. As you can see, I've got Playbeat here loaded as a MIDI effect, right? So it's going to generate no audio output whatsoever. This is a new feature with Playbeat 4. I don't believe it was available with Playbeat 3. You couldn't load it as a MIDI effect, only as an instrument. And that gives us the freedom to then route that MIDI out to anything we want. In this case, it's just going straight through to Drum Kit Designer. So if I open that up, you can see I've got the Detroit Garage kick loaded up. I got my kick, snare, hi-hat, toms, crash, ride, and all that good stuff loaded up there. And so I can put anything I want here. Now, the only catch is you saw those notes that I set, right, in the Playbeat settings. I've got to make sure that I have the notes chosen to match what I want to trigger in whatever I've got loaded over here as my instrument, right? So let's go over here. Let me shrink that down. We'll go into edit, and I'm going to show you why I chose those particular values. So this is just a pattern sequence. I'm not actually using this at all. But what this is doing, though, is it's helping me set the values that I'm going to use, the note values that I'm going to use to trigger each of these kit pieces. So if I click right here and I go to notes, I go up here to labeled notes, you'll see there's this list. This is all built into Logic Pro for iPad. You can see here I've got kick, C1. If I go to the next line carefully here, go to notes, labeled notes here. Here's my snare, center, D1. So I went in and I chose these particular kit pieces, and it basically told me what the note values were going to be used for those. I could choose any one, but I chose the defaults. So that's why you see the values in Playbeat that you do. All these values were picked from the note values for each of these kit pieces. And I try to match them up to match, what Playbeat 4 was using. So we bounce over here to Playbeat 4. You'll notice, we got like our kick. There's a little, like a snare cymbal, right? There's a little, maybe a hi-hat. I know it's a little small, but there's like a tom here. So I tried to line these up. So it's up to you to decide, what goes in each slot and what notes to use. But just for this demo, I wanted to explain how I've got it set up so it makes sense. So basically, that was all I had to do. Just load this guy up and choose those values that you saw in the settings and then send it out to the right notes. And here we go. We can play any kit we want over here as long as we have the notes set correctly. Now, let's move on to the second scenario. Let me turn that off and mute that. Now this one is basically going to be the same. So this basically is almost the same. Let's go over to Playbeat 4. You can see it's loaded as a MIDI effect, and double click this. I'm going to go over the settings here and I'll show you how it's set up. Now in this case we have, again, here's our MIDI outs, right? Now you can see track 1, this is channel 1. Track 2, this is channel 2, track 3, this is channel 3, 4. So each track is set to a different MIDI channel, as you can see. And then again, click the little AC plug there, and we've got our fixed MIDI output on. We've got our notes selected, same notes as in the other scenario here. The lock MIDI outputs is on as well. So really the only difference is that we've set a channel 1, we're using channel 1 through 8. And basically, I just wanted to show that you can do that as well. And basically, I didn't have to change anything here. I used the same drum kit, and it's accepting those values on each of those kit pieces. It didn't have to really change anything. It just kind of works. So there might be some fine points on this. It works pretty well. What I'm going to show you here, though, is there's another scenario where you can actually use that MIDI out to drive different kit pieces and customize them. So let's look at this scenario right here, right? And we're also going to combine that together with scenario number 3. So we're going to combine channels 1 through 8 using fixed notes, except this one we're going to also free it up. This is going to be scenario number 3. We're going to use any pitch we want. So here we are in what I'm calling scenario number 3, which is channels 1 through 8, any pitch we want, right? Total freedom to do anything we want with any of these channels, any pitches whatsoever. That really opens up the possibilities with Playbeat. So let's look at the settings here. Let's dive in to the plugin. We'll open the plugin. Now, this is the driving track, right? This is the brains right here on track 3. And this is going to produce all the sound. So track 3 is strictly MIDI. Track 4 is where we're generating our sounds. So the MIDI is being sent out from track 3 into track 4, which happens to be a track stack. And we're going to take advantage of that. You'll notice that I've got an instrument loaded in the instrument slot on track 3, if you're very perceptive, and maybe wondering why. Well, it turns out, at least as far as I can see, that unless I have an instrument in the slot, whatever's in this MIDI slot, the transport will not run. So Playbeat 4 would not run. I tried other MIDI FXs as well. They won't run unless there's something in the slot. So it's just a dummy. Don't pay any attention to that. But I did have to put something in there. You might have to as well. But anyway, let's go into Playbeat 4. Let's open that up and let's look at the settings. Now, I've got some settings that carried over. So I'm going to go ahead and turn all these off here for now. And locked MIDI is already off. So we've got our fixed MIDI off. Our MIDI outputs now, however, these are basically the default, which is channel 1, track 1, channel 2, track 2. So you wouldn't have to really change anything from the defaults. This is the typical setup. The other scenarios where everything's on channel 1, that is not the defaults. I did have to go in and change that. Let's jump over here. Now, what does this mean, right? So we've got our kick and our snare and our hi-hats and things like that, right? So, and everything right now is just determined by the MIDI channel. That's everything. So everything on this track number 1 right here is going to go to channel 1. Everything here is going to go to channel 2, right? And the notes are free to do anything they want. So if I hit play on this right now, let's see what it sounds like. You can see it's triggering these various things. If I go down here to the track stack, you can see that, got that muted, unmuted. You can see that these pieces are playing. So there's sound coming out of each of these instruments, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, and I'll just show you how that's set up briefly. There's a few things you got to do to set this up properly to work correctly in Logic Pro. I don't want to go into it right here in too much detail, but I might in another later video. So basically, if you look at this track, because this is the key really right here, I've got, this is my track stack, and the settings on here are not that important. It's these down here. So if I go to like this first instrument, kick 1, right? If I look over here, here we go. Let's open these settings for the kick, our first track right here. And this one, as you can see, is getting MIDI in. That's going to be coming from MIDI to track. It's going to be getting its MIDI right here from this track we were just looking at, this PB4 MIDI any pitch, which we were just looking at a second ago. So that's the source, right, for this track and all the other sub-tracks. And the key here is this one. I'm going to say MIDI channel 1. I don't want to get on all the MIDI channels, otherwise it would play all the tracks, right? So I'm going to filter to track 1, MIDI channel 1. This is our track 2, MIDI channel 2, and so on and so forth. So that's really the key to making this work. There's some other fine points which I can go into later, but that's basically the setup and how this is going to work. So let's now take a look at what happens when we start making some changes in Playbeat. So let's open this back up. Let's go back up to track 3. Yeah, this is our instance of Playbeat. Here we go. Now, if I start playing this, listen to those pitches, right? If I go in here and I randomize, here, let's go to pitch, and let's just randomize those pitches a few times. So now, we've got different pitches on different things. Let's see what happens. Completely different, right? And I haven't changed the steps. I haven't changed the steps. The internal sounds would make no difference because this is a MIDI effect, right? We're not using the output, the sounds, or any of that from Playbeat. This is all completely from the Logic drum kit. But these pitches that are set are going to make all the difference in the world. So now the kick is going to be going up and down and up and down, and the snare is going to be going up and down and up and down in these different pitches. Now, it may be rather chaotic, but it also may be quite interesting. So it's really up to you to decide what you want to do. So basically, that's our three scenarios of how you can use this in Logic Pro. And I'd like to take a step and go back here. I'd like to take a moment to go back and cover a couple little gotchas that I ran to, and then we'll cover the MIDI export right after that. So when I first started messing around with the MIDI out with Playbeat, I was having all sorts of headaches, and it was my fault because I didn't understand what was going on. So if we open this up, so if we go in here now and we go back in the settings, just to remind you, we've got a fixed note for each of these, and we've got this locked MIDI outputs turned on, which I said you definitely want to have on in most cases, right? And there's a reason, and this is why. So if I go in here and I just start doing randomize, right? If I hit randomize, I can randomize these patterns. I can do all sorts of things. I can randomize these patterns, right? And I've got the pitch randomization turned on. Now let me go over to the pitch randomization though and see, look at this. The pitches are still fixed, right? I can click this all day long, but these pitches aren't going to change. And that's because I went in here and I have this locked MIDI outputs turned on. Now, if I uncheck this, if I go in here and randomize now, these pitches are going to change on me. These pitches now are different. Now, if I hit play, so now what I'm getting is different instruments playing all over the place, right? Because the pitch determines which instrument drum kit piece is playing. So now it's completely scrambled, right? So I just made a big error because by turning that locked MIDI out, and is something other people may encounter. So basically, you have to make sure that if you're using pitch to drive, or to trigger a particular sound or kit piece on your instrument, your external instrument, watch out. You want to have that locked. The other thing to watch out for is if you go in here, if I load up, let me go up. I got some presets I created specifically for this. Okay, so I loaded this preset here, and you'll notice my pitches now are fixed again, right? I've got it saved with presets. That's another thing to note. The settings, some of these settings will save with the presets, some will not. So the fixed output and these values will save with these presets. When you save them, it'll take those and store them away. However, the MIDI outputs will not get saved. So if I were to change, if I were to load up this preset in a different instance, I would have to reset these channels. This does not save with the preset. It does save with the state, however. So like in Logic Pro, when I save this project, it's going to save these channels, and it's going to save these notes and the locked MIDI and everything. So be careful. There's a lot of little gotchas out there. So you got to just make sure you know what happens when you change a preset, what happens when you load a different preset, what happens when you click randomize. There's different scenarios. So let's go and change a preset now and see what happens if we do that. Let's just go to a factory preset, right? Let's just pick one here. And as you can see, I still have my fixed pitches because I have my locked MIDI outputs turned on. So with this on, you're safe to change presets, and you're also safe to randomize and not have to worry about the pitches being messed up in this scenario. Now, if you're in a different scenario, like the one we were just looking at with those different kit pieces with different tunings, right? That's a different story. There, you can randomize those pitches and have these unlocked, and it might be fine. It's your choice. You just have to understand how each of these scenarios works. So hopefully that clarifies a few things in terms of what the settings are, how you can use it in different ways in Logic Pro. Next section, I'm going to talk about the MIDI export. All right, let's look at the MIDI export. So we're going to do two MIDI exports. We're going to use the first track, which is all on channel 1, fixed notes. The second MIDI export we're going to do from this second track, which is channels 1 through 8. Again, fixed notes. That should be sufficient to demonstrate. So let's go over into the plugin, and over here in the upper right, you've got your export. You click on that. You can do your audio over here. And on the right, you've got your MIDI export. They call it pitch. I can pick any one of these tracks, or I can do all tracks. So I'm going to go ahead and click all tracks here. All right, so when we click this, we get a copy dialog. Now, this isn't exactly drag and drop on iOS. It's going to be pretty close. If we click copy, we could save to files. I'm going to go ahead and click copy. Either way, what you would do is you would pick a folder. Like this. Here I've got a couple that I saved off from earlier. I'm just going to go ahead and right click on here and click paste. And as you can see, it puts it here, and it gives it to like a date and time stamp on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a slide over on this, bring it back over to Logic. We're going to pull that out of the way. And we're going to go to the corresponding track with just channel 1 on it down here, which is this one. That's the one that has everything on channel 1, the fixed notes. So I'm going to drag this guy right here and drop him right in there. I'm going to say go ahead and import tempo. You could say no, it doesn't really matter. And you can see we got 2 bars that came in right there. So I'm going to go ahead and mute that and unmute this. If we go to this track. Now, if you notice on this track, we've simply got Drum Kit Designer loaded, and a track stack is loaded up in there. I need to turn on this track, however, before it's going to work. So now, if we play this, it should work. Let me slide this out of the way. There it is. And let's open it up in the editor so you can see what it looks like. So you can see here's the pattern. And if we go to show note color, you can see you can change the coloring to look at the different aspects. You can look at velocity. If I set it to MIDI channel here, you'll notice it's all the same color, right? Because it's all in the same MIDI channel 1. But you can see we've got our triggered notes here on the different pitches, the fixed pitches that we chose in the app. So let me just pull that out of the way now. All right, let's do our second track here. Now this is going to be fixed MIDI, but channels 1 through 8. And let's just play this to get a sense of what it sounds like real quick here. Okay, there you go. So I'm going to go down to the plugins, open Playbeat 4, go to export, click on all tracks, copy, do our slide over here, right click, paste right in there, and it's going to be the 3rd one down. I'm going to make sure I keep track of that here so I can find it. There it is right there. And then we're going to drop this one to the corresponding track down here. Because we're using MIDI channel per track, we got to make sure we use the right mapping where we're going to drop the MIDI file in so it plays correctly. So it's going to be this one. We'll just drop that right in there. I'm going to say go ahead and import the tempo. We've got 2 bars, right? There we are. And now, if we go up here to the top and mute that, everything's muted. If we rewind now, let's slide that out of the way, hit play. Yep, sounds exactly the same. Now where it gets interesting is if we go to this and we edit, we can now go in here and we can see we already have the view by region color, by velocity. We can also see by MIDI channel. If we go in here, you'll notice that, let me slide this down. And now you can see a rather pretty view of the MIDI file. And you can see that each channel is a different color, so you can obviously see each of these tracks that are being triggered are on a different channel, 8 different channels. And that's about it for MIDI export. So that's about it today for Logic Pro and Playbeat 4 and the MIDI out and MIDI export. Please look in the description for a link to the project. And I'd like to add in this video, I did encounter a couple glitches when loading Playbeat 4 and Logic Pro a couple times, so you may encounter those, but I'm sure they'll fix that. This is a pretty new app. It's just been released. I'm sure they'll have that bug fixed very soon, and it's going to work great. So thank you for watching.